Some roads take you to places you never expected. Sometimes a single choice shapes the rest of your life. And sometimes you don't realize how it feels to walk the wrong path until you've already taken the first step. I spent years trying to make the right choices. When I married Anderson, I was 38. Until then, I had always dreamed of building a family, of giving my child a loving home one day. But Anderson never shared the same dreams. At first, he made all the promises a husband should. "We'll build a life together," he said. But as the years passed, I realized I was nothing more than a shadow in his world. Anderson never truly prioritized me or the family we could have built. His job, his schedule, his rigid ways, those always came first. At first, I lied to myself. Maybe he would change. Maybe one day he'd notice the emptiness growing inside me. But no, Anderson never changed, he stayed exactly the same. And with each passing year, I grew lonelier. But Drake was different. Anderson's son from his first marriage. When we met, he was 19, fresh into college, ambitious, driven, full of potential. Anderson always kept his distance from him, thinking that being a father meant providing money and nothing else. But Drake wanted more than that. He wanted to prove himself, to carve his own path. He was everything Anderson wasn't. And before I even realized it, I started watching him. When Drake was close to graduating, he made a decision that changed everything. Everyone expected him to take a high-paying job in engineering, but instead, he said he wanted to be a mechanic. Anderson lost his mind when he found out, yelling, raging, even threatening to cut him off financially. I still remember the echoes of that argument shaking the walls of our house. And then Drake left the night after graduation. He packed his things and walked out without saying a word. I never got to say goodbye. I never asked where he was going because if I had let myself show how much it hurt to see him leave, then I would have had to admit something else, something I wasn't ready to face. It's been 2 years now since he left. I've only seen him a handful of times. The bond we had, it wasn't there anymore. It wasn't supposed to be. And tonight, as I sat there in my broken-down car on a dark, rainy road, I realized there was no one else I could call. I didn't know it yet, but everything was about to change. It would go further than I ever imagined, and it would happen all on its own. I picked up my phone, my fingers instinctively hovering over Anderson's number. But within seconds, I hesitated. Even if he answered, wasn't it obvious what he'd say? "Call a tow truck, Cameron. I'm far away." He'd hang up without another word. I swallowed hard. For a few seconds, I just stared at the screen. Then I backed out of the call and stopped on another name, Drake. A strange uneasiness stirred inside me. My finger hovered over his contact. Should I call him? Was this just a call for help, or was I something else, something unspoken, something unnamed? Using this as an excuse, the rain tapped lightly against the windows. Then, in the glow of my headlights, I saw a tall, strong silhouette approaching in the dark. A strange sense of relief spread through me at the sight. Drake reached the car and knocked on the window. As I rolled it down just a little, his voice came through, familiar and steady. "Cameron, you okay?" My eyes locked onto him. His face was slightly damp from the rain, his features sharper than I remembered. His stance was effortless but strong. He wasn't a boy anymore, he was a man. And in these 2 years, it wasn't just the distance between us that had changed, he had changed. Yeah, The car stopped suddenly, and I didn't know what to do. I admitted, I went to visit my mom, and it happened on the way back. Anderson's out of town again. I didn't call him because I already know what he'd say, "Call a tow truck, Cameron." He'd probably even get annoyed with me for it. If this is your first time hearing confessions like this, make sure to join our channel and subscribe with notifications on. Before moving forward, you'll find yourself wishing this story never ends. Drake tilted his head slightly, something understanding in his eyes. "I know why you didn't call him," he said calmly. "And don't worry, I got this." He leaned forward, popping the hood open and shining his flashlight over the engine. I watched his hands move with precision, his muscles flexing with each controlled motion. He wasn't just a college kid anymore, there was confidence in every movement, experience in the way he handled things. "It's pretty clear this isn't getting fixed here," he finally said, shutting the hood. "We'll have to take it to the garage. I need to drive it because the steering might be stiff. You'll sit in the passenger seat. I'll leave my truck here and come back for it later." I didn't question it. I didn't have to because I knew with Drake here, everything would somehow be okay. The air was humid during the drive, but the silence between us wasn't uncomfortable. If anything, it felt like it was pulling us closer without either of us realizing it. Drake would glance over at me from time to time, his voice steady as he told me things, keeping the conversation going, filling the space between us with that same effortless ease he always had. And I listened. I watched him, the way his hands controlled the steering wheel, the sound of his voice, the presence of him right there beside me. When he left 2 years ago, I never admitted to myself how much his absence had left a void in me. Anderson had always been distant, but Drake's presence had been different. His energy, his voice, his eyes, even back then, something inside me had been waking up. I just hadn't been ready to see it yet. I remembered that night, the night right before he left. There was something between us, something that had never crossed the line, but it could have. That possibility had always been there, and now Drake was here again, older, more mature, and so much more magnetic. A quiet unease stirred inside me. This feeling was forbidden. It wasn't supposed to be here, but it was, and no matter how hard I tried to suppress it, I could feel it in every breath I took when he was nearby. By the time we arrived at the garage, I took a deep breath, trying to regain control over myself as I opened the car door. But there was a voice inside me whispering, "Tonight you're both different, and you both know it." The garage smelled of motor oil and metal, and the rhythmic patter of rain echoed off the roof. Drake lifted his head from under the hood, wiping a thin layer of sweat from his forehead before turning to face me. There was no exhaustion in his eyes, but his expression was thoughtful. "It's getting late," he said, his voice deep and steady. "If I start fixing this car now, we'll be here till morning. It's better to take care of it first thing tomorrow." I nodded. It wasn't a problem, but something about the way Drake was standing there made it clear this wasn't just any ordinary night. "The rain's coming down harder," he added. "Stay here. I'll go with a friend to pick up my truck first, then I'll come back and take you home. I don't want you out in this alone." His voice carried the quiet authority of a man who paid attention to the little things. Anderson never did. In this situation, he wouldn't have cared, he would have expected me to handle it somehow. But Drake was different. When he stepped out, the silence of the garage settled over me. Rain pounded against the roof while I sat down, folding my hands in my lap. Logically, I should have been annoyed or stressed. My car had broken down, I was getting home late, my plans had fallen apart. But the strange thing was, I didn't care. If anything, I felt at peace. More than that, I felt happy. Why? This was just a car breakdown, it was an ordinary situation. But tonight, nothing about it felt ordinary. The way Drake looked at me, the warmth in his voice, the way his presence filled the space, something inside me was shifting. As I waited, I thought about it. Over the years, Drake had grown into a man, strong, independent. But more than that, when he was around, I didn't feel alone, and that feeling, whatever it was settling deep inside me. The rumble of an engine outside broke my thoughts. Drake pulled up in front of the garage, stepping inside with water dripping from his shoulders, completely unfazed by the rain. "Ready?" he asked, his eyes locking onto mine. I stood up, pulling my jacket tighter around me before nodding. We walked outside together and got into the car. As we drove, the feeling inside me only grew. I turned to look at him, trying to find the words to describe what I was feeling. "You know," I said with a slight smile, "when something like this happens, most people get frustrated, worried, or feel unlucky. But I don't feel that way. In fact, strangely enough, I feel happy." Drake SM. He smiled slightly, keeping his eyes on the road. "I get it," he said. "Sometimes, even at the wrong times, things can feel right." His voice was soft, but there was something deeper in it. It was like the walls I had built around my loneliness were crumbling. In that moment, I realized just how distant Anderson really was, how alone I felt even when he was right beside me. More than that, I realized that Drake saw it too. The tension between us was undeniable. Now I felt an urge inside me, a quiet but persistent whisper: I didn't want this night to end. As we got closer to my house, I took a breath, gathering my courage. "Drake, you've been dealing with this for hours. You must be starving," I said, trying not to look away. "Come inside, let's have dinner together like old times." Drake looked at me for a moment, silent, a brief hesitation, then that familiar warm smile. "How could I say no to that?" he said, and something inside me caught fire. When we stepped inside and I started preparing dinner in the kitchen, all the stress I should have felt from the night simply disappeared. We were laughing together, talking about old memories, reminiscing as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Every time our eyes met, we both knew it, and there was no going back. The soft flicker of candlelight danced over the table. We had been talking for a while now, sharing stories, laughing like we always had. It felt so effortless, so familiar, but the air between us wasn't the same. Drake leaned back slightly in his chair, crossing his arms as he watched me closely. There was warmth in his gaze, but something else too, something playful, something knowing. "I have to admit," he said, smirking slightly, "you look just as beautiful as ever today. Actually, it's kind of unbelievable. It's like you've gotten even younger in these last 2 years. If I didn't know you, I'd say, look, I'm 26, and this woman, she's maybe 30 at most, and I'd probably be trying to charm her right now." I laughed, caught off guard by the way he had said it so naturally. The unexpected compliment flustered me, but I couldn't deny how much I liked it. "Well, thank you, but I'm 45, Drake," I said, still smiling. "There's nearly 20 years between us." "Age is just a number, Cameron," he said, his voice dipping lower. We both knew that. His words sent a wave of heat through me. The table fell silent, but the silence wasn't awkward, it was thick, heavy, like something was on the verge of breaking. Drake tilted his head slightly, his gaze searching me like he was seeing straight through to something deeper, something neither of us could ignore any longer. "You've changed too," I said finally, trying to shift the conversation even just a little. "When you left, I could already tell you were starting to mature, but now you're a grown man." The smile on Drake's face slowly faded, replaced by something more serious. He placed his hand on the table, his fingers lightly tracing the surface, hesitating for just a second, then he looked straight into my eyes and spoke. "I had feelings for you, Cameron." Something inside me tightened instantly. "Drake, I know," he continued. "I was never supposed to say that, but I don't want to hide it anymore. When I left that house, I thought if I respected you, if I stayed away, I'd forget. I thought it was just something temporary, that it would fade with time, but it didn't." He took a deep breath, his gaze pulling me in, holding me captive. "And now, looking at you like this, I feel something completely different. Seeing you like this, so alone, believe me, it kills me inside." My heart pounded so hard it felt like my whole world had split in two. One side telling me to run, the other, the part of me I barely recognized, wanting nothing more than to sit there and feel every single word he was saying. "Drake, I couldn't finish my sentence because his eyes were locked onto mine so intensely I felt like I couldn't breathe. And then, without thinking, my fingers stretched across the table, reaching for his hand. Drake caught my hand in his. His skin was warm, strong, and in that moment, everything went silent. We moved at the same time as we leaned in. We stole one last look at each other before our eyes closed, then our lips met. At first it was slow, hesitant, but within seconds, everything we had suppressed, every ounce of tension we had ignored for years was unleashed all at once. Drake cued my face, gently pulling me in closer. My body instinctively gravitated toward his. The more I felt his warmth, the more I realized something inside me, something I had lost for years, was coming back to life. And at that moment, I knew there was no turning back. Even as Drake's lips remained on mine, I could feel something waking up inside me, something I had silenced for so long. My hands moved on their own, sliding down his shoulders as he pulled me against him, firm, certain, and completely unshaken. I moved toward Drake. As I looked into his eyes, I noticed his hand moving slowly. It made me even more excited. I felt something inside me, something huge, and even though I felt a deep, intense pain in that moment, I didn't care. Everything kept going. I was letting out loud sounds, and as if matching my energy, I kept breathlessly thanking Drake. He was happy too. I could see the excitement in his eyes. We had found each other. We were perfectly in sync in every way. I pressed my hands against Drake's shoulders, thinking my nails might be hurting him. My body tensed up and trembled. I wasn't expecting that kind of reaction. I could tell Drake loved it. I started begging him to let go, to stop holding back. And then, as he said my name, Cameron, his voice slowly faded, and he finally let himself go. A deep warmth spread inside me. Taking a deep breath, I let myself collapse beside him. As I lay down next to Drake, my heart was still racing. Our breathing was uneven, but inside, I felt an indescribable peace. Feeling him being this close to him, it was like putting back a missing piece. The piece that had been gone for years. Drake turned to his side, locking eyes with me. His hand slid into my hair, tracing my face. There was a certainty in his gaze, a look that told me this was real, that this wasn't just some temporary escape. "Cameron," he said slowly, "you need to leave." Something tightened inside me. I had been waiting for this, for him to say it, but still, the words hung in the air. "He doesn't deserve you. He never did. He left you alone for years, never showed you love, turned your life into a shadow of what it should be. You don't deserve a life like that." I tried to say something, but he didn't let me. "If you do this, we can start over somewhere else, in a whole new country where no one knows us. I don't care about anything else. I love you, Cameron, and I can't stand seeing you sad, feeling alone anymore." I locked eyes with him. The sincerity in his voice, the desperate longing in his eyes, shook me to my core. A warmth spread inside me, something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Was this an escape? Maybe, but it was also an opportunity. I was staring at the possibility of a happiness I had never tasted before. I took a deep breath and smiled. "Drake," the words got stuck in my throat, but in that moment, our eyes were doing all the talking. Our hands found each other, fingers intertwining. This story wasn't over, there was more, and this time it was going even further. Stay tuned for what happens next. If you made it this far, I know this story hit you deep. There's so much more to share, and you don't want to miss any of it. So make sure to hit that follow button, turn on notifications, and drop a comment about this story.